I was a little kid in San Jose, California. I knew he was coming. They brought him in screaming and yelling in the same bedroom. We stayed in the same bedroom, and that's my first memory of him. And he had a navel that was black. It had been cut off. That's what I remember him, and towhead blonde hair.
So what were your first impressions of Paul Jensen?
I thought he was a great guy. I was glad that somebody, finally had married my sister. We were concerned about that for many years. Just kidding. And I loved their whole wedding was, outdoor picnic, barbecue, and of course over the years, Paul shared his love of barbecue and smoking with me. He gave me my little electric smoker, but I've just totally embraced it and totally loved having that be a part of my life now.
Okay. What do you like best about Paul?
That's just hard to say. I don't think I can think of anything that I don't like about him. He's so easygoing. He lets a lot of stuff kind of roll off his shoulders. He's great to my sister, so helpful with all the dogs and Dalmatians, and when she travels, he helps take care of all the dogs here. And he's a good guy. He's well liked by everyone.
We lived in California. We lived in Oahu and Hawaii and Kailua, and then we moved to Independence, Missouri.
Okay.
Paul stayed there. He went to one kindergarten, one junior high, one senior high, and went off to Lawrence to KU.
Paul and I are fellow German Shorthair Pointer lovers. So that's our connection. Mary Lynn's a Dalmatian person, and Paul's a German Shorthair person. So there's a big difference. Big difference. Ask Paul. He'll tell you.
When I think of Paul, I think of three things: cars, barbecue, and basketball.
I'm going back now almost, I'm going to say September, it'll be 14 years when we got together on owning a Shorthair together. And I'm not sure how excited Mary Lynn was about having another Shorthair in the house, but Paul and his father came over to my house in Geneva to see my puppies. And at the time, I had out of the litter of 8, I think I had 8 in the litter. I think I had 4 puppies available. And Paul was real interested in possibly having a puppy. And there was one in the litter that I thought would be perfect for their household because she could stand up for herself with the Dalmatians and still be her own self and be her own individual. So that's how we got together. And while he and his father were there, he just happened to make a selection, and it was the same one that I thought would be suitable for their household. And so that's really when our close relationship began.
Met Paul in our freshman year of college up at KU. He was a fraternity brother, so we met in the fraternity. We were roommates in the house, and then we roomed together when we moved out of the house. We were still fraternity brothers, and remained friends ever since. Even though he moved to all different parts of the country, I moved to all different parts of the country, but we still kind of reconnected at least once a year throughout the years. Yeah.
We met in high school, our sophomore year in high school.
Okay, where's that?
In Independence, Missouri, Truman High School.
Okay.
In 1973. Seems like forever.
Were you guys seniors or?
No, we were sophomores.
Okay.
And we were both on the cross country team. And Paul was an excellent athlete. He ran cross country. He always said he ran cross country just to stay in shape for swimming. And so, but I ran cross country because I enjoyed it. So, I think I enjoyed it a little more than Paul. But as we became friends, we became kind of the rebel rousers on the team, and because we were both pretty good. And by our junior year on the team, we were both very good. And I remember a story of how we could just get our way on the team. We had a coach that was pretty strict, yet he enjoyed a good time. And we were getting ready for a practice one day, and we were going to run out to this park that was about 6 miles away. And so we were stretching out and warming up behind the school, and Paul and I convinced everybody that if we left early, he couldn't time us, and we'd get there and we'd just have an easier practice. We wouldn't have to run for time. And so the rest of the team reluctantly, but they went along with it. And so we all took off, and we got about 3 months from the school, and Paul and I fed to the back of the line and just ran back to school. And Coach DeMarc finally came out and said, "Where is everybody?" He says, "We tried to talk them out of it, but they just wanted to run. They didn't want to run enough time." So he says, "Get in the car." So we got in the car with him, and we got to ride out. We passed him and waved. The team didn't speak to us for a few days after that one.
Yeah.
But we were always good in practice about making the team work really hard, just at our enjoyment. We did another thing where we started another run around the city, and we started out way too fast, and we had another guy on the team, Dirk Tate, that just was trying to keep up, and so we says, "Dirk, we're not going to run this fast the whole way." And Dirk looked at us and says, "I got pride." And so Dirk kept going, and Dirk pulled a hamstring and missed the next 2 meets. "Dirk, we told you." And so Paul and I were good at instigating things like that all through school.
Right.
It was just fun.
Well, obviously there's a lot of stories, and some of them I've forgotten, and some of them I might indulge a bit because of my memory loss. But there's a couple, and I don't know if you'll want to edit this, but Paul, when I met Paul, was 6'2", about 160 pounds. He was an athlete in high school, a swimmer and long distance runner. So he was in great shape when I met him. Had his long blonde hair about down to his shoulders, and our nickname for him was Edgar Winter. Remember the Edgar Winter band? So we called him Jedgar for Jensen and Edgar. But Paul had I don't remember the year, but he had a hot rod Camaro with big slick tires on it, like a 457 V8 engine, just fast as shit. He wouldn't drive that thing over 20 miles an hour. We'd get in the car and putt around Lawrence like we were old people. And here's Paul with his long blonde hair in this souped up car and these slicks, and he's barely going 20 miles an hour because he didn't want to hurt the car. So the year we moved out of the house, we were living in an off-campus apartments, and the car was parked out front. And one morning we were woken up by this huge crash. Somebody had run into it in the morning. And I've rarely seen Paul angry, right? He's just not that kind of guy. Gets up, we go out, he's pissed, but he's like, and long story short, the guy just said he screwed up, didn't see it, ran into him. Within 30 minutes, the guy was in our apartment. They were smoking a joint, having a beer, getting to know one another. Paul didn't care. And this was his prized possession, right? His car is this Camaro that he loved. And I'll never forget the fact that Paul just kind of, after a few minutes, was fine and invited the guy in. Probably was his friend. I don't remember the guy's name, but.
So how long have you known Paul?
I've known him since 7th grade.
7th grade.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we went to junior high school together, and then when we were freshmen, we would carpool because we were among a group of freshmen that they wanted to be on the high school swim team, mainly because of a guy named Scott Chapman, but they had to they could single him out, so 4 or 5 of us got to tag along, and so we got on the swim team, and then we swam together, and then we just became best friends.
Okay.
Yeah, and have tended to keep in touch.
When he moved to San Francisco, he was selling electronics. I've forgotten the name of the store in Kansas City. He started selling high-end electronics and systems to people's homes. And he was still partying pretty hard and having a great time. And he got a job out in California selling these high-end electronics. And I just remember a phone call from him late one night he had been out with his friends, and he had been telling me how he's decided he was going to be totally double-breasted, meaning he wore nothing but double-breasted blazers at that moment on, because apparently that was what you did in San Francisco when you were out partying. So just that call, and he said, I'm totally double-breasted. I had no idea what he was talking about. But that was just like him, you know. He would just kind of say whatever was on his mind.
We talked more probably about barbecuing than anything, because I know he was so into his barbecue, and I was kind of just getting into that stuff and smoking it. So we had a lot of stories about that.
Okay.
And that was always fun.
Well, what do you like best about Paul?
Honest. Paul's honest. He didn't pull any punches, man. He told you what it was. If he wasn't happy with something or who he was working with, he'd tell you. You know, if he could help you out, he would. If he couldn't, he'd tell you straight up. He was just, there wasn't any punches pulled when you talked to Paul. He'd just tell you how it was, because he didn't have a choice.
What else? He came to the lake one time, and we went
Which
down,
lake?
Lake of the Ozarks.
Okay.
And we decided we were going to go down and watch a ski tournament. And we got down there to watch the ski tournament. We were on a pontoon boat, and all of a sudden it floated into the slalom course, and people were skiing, and we couldn't get the motor started, and shut down the ski tournament.
I don't know if there's any one thing. I guess just his personality, you know, his friendship, and you know, I don't really ever recall him saying a whole lot of bad things about people. You know, he would joke with the rest of us and make the comment every once in a while, but you know, he very rarely I heard him speak negatively about anyone. I know he has, but you know, he was just not that kind of guy. That I think it goes along with his personality and his lack of really getting angry, that you know, he just sees people for what they are and doesn't judge, you know, by that. So probably I would say that is one thing that probably sticks with me. If I think about it, I can't really think of, you know, there's a lot of smart asses and a lot of our friends are that way, and he was just not. So, you know, I respect that a lot about him.
He's a great guy.
Yeah. What do you like best about him?
His barbecue's really good. And what I like best about Paul is his kindness. He's a super kind human being, which is always delightful to see nowadays.
Oh, everything about him. His attitude makes me laugh. I mean, just even today, he's just always the jokester, and he's always got such a positive attitude. And even in the face of things going really wrong, we just always manage to laugh about it and manage to keep our wits together. Some of the things we did, I can't really talk about in high school, but
yeah.
But
well,
we
you
sure
can.
You know, it all goes back to cross-country stories for me, because that's where Paul and I spent the most time together. We just had great times. Every day was something different on our team, and the antics that we would pull to get our teammates mad at us were crazy.
Tell me some funny stories about you and Paul.
Okay, well, let's see. We used to.
I mean, I want.
We used
like
to make our
some
moms
really
listen to Cheech and Chong on the radio on the way to swim practice, and we'd sit in the car laughing because they were talking about smoking pot and all kinds of other things, and our moms didn't know what they were talking about. Let's see. And then there was one time that we were anyway, we were running around cruising and drinking and in his neighborhood, and we were down at the end of the street one night, and the police came around and we could tell they were getting close, and we left his car and ran across this big farm that was right next to his neighborhood called Drum Farm, and the police were chasing us across the field with their spotlights and stuff. We got to a creek. We had a styrofoam cooler full of beer. We were underage, of course, and when we got to the creek, we didn't know what to do, so we backed off about 20 feet or so and decided we were going to jump the creek, and one of us had the cooler. I don't remember which one of us had the cooler, but we both jumped and neither one of us made it. We hit the bank on the other side and the styrofoam cooler got smashed and everything just started rolling all over everywhere. And anyway, we just kept moving it and then circled back around to his house and came up from the back and tucked in and just left everything behind. Let's see.
His commitment, his long-term commitment to friendship. I mean, we've lived miles apart. After he graduated, he went to California, and but he could be gone for 2 years, and it's really like that. I mean, I spoke to him. I was in Orlando a couple of years ago down here on vacation. I just called him, and he came right over. So our friendship has always been, we don't have to talk every day, but we're still really, really good friends. So, and that's what I've always enjoyed about his friendship. It's hard to find people like that.
And right before graduation, we were driving around after graduation practice. We were driving around in his neighborhood. And again, we were driving around with a cooler full of beer. And he, right in his neighborhood, pulled out in front of one of his neighbors. And his neighbors hit us, and we freaked out about what we were going to do with the beer in the car. And we just started throwing it out the window into the ditch of the beer cans, and the boxes were flying. Anyway, Katie got, and his stepdad was an attorney, and Katie got us off for that. So we got in trouble.
Oh, nice. You guys were in high school?
We were.
Yeah.
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 One thing, just you've always just been such a gentleman, and your door is always open, and you know, it's just very special, super special.
Well, I can tell you that in the travels with Paul, we would not only work very hard during the day, but at night we like to have a little good time. And there were times where me and Paul, we were kind of hooked on Tiger Woods PGA Tour golf. And we would have many a match in the hotel room. And of course we'd run out of beer at 2 in the morning and try to go buy more. So, yeah. And of course places were closed then.
Right.
And it made getting up the next morning very hard. So.
He's really transparent and straightforward. Yeah, so it was just always, and funny. We always seemed to laugh about the same stuff, could relate to whatever each of us were in trouble for, or going through, and just without, just cuts to the bottom line and is straightforward, kind of like, this is what's going on, this is what I think, and he is who he is, right? He's just like, he's just pure Paul.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. Exactly.
And you know what you're getting, and you can count on what you're getting, and it's a good thing. So he's been the best friend ever. So one of the few people that calls me Dave instead of David, and I don't know why he does that. He just does. He does what he wants, basically. Right, Michelle? Yeah. The guy just does what he wants to. And doesn't mind if other people do the same thing.
Good friend, and I've been telling people here, my wife, who did design work, she is a trained artist, she couldn't find work here, and he helped get her a job with a flooring company where she worked for about 5 years, and we've just remained friends and play golf together and meet for lunch and those kind of things. And I like people that are gentlemen, and he's a real gentleman. I mean, I don't say this loosely. I know about 10 real gentlemen in my life, and he's one of them.
Yeah.
Never heard him say anything bad about anybody. I mean, in a playful sense, but he's just got that good Midwestern personality, and it's true. It's real true.
Yeah. The nice whole story behind the chip deal is myself and Paul and Mary Lynn and her parents went to a Penn State Auburn bowl game here in town, the Capital One Bowl, and Mary Lynn's father Larry, looked over at me and he goes, "So what did you think about that, Chip?" And so me and Paul immediately looked at each other and started laughing, and Paul goes, "You are now Chip."
Oh,
and that's
okay.
how it all started.
Okay.
Well, here's a little funny story. I told you I came down to do a trade show, and I flew in and rented a car. And he said, when you get to my house, just walk in, the door will be open. I'll be in the back room in my office. I probably won't hear you knock. So I did knock, rapped on the door, and I walked in, and on top of me were about 7 or 8 Dalmatians. And I did not know that his wife was raising these dogs. And I'm like, I like dogs, but all of a sudden I've got all these dogs sniffing me, etc. And I said, "Paul, you never told me your wife raised dogs." He said, "Well, you never asked." And so they kind of sniffed me, and he said, "We'll walk them outside and they'll just follow you." And we did that.
His amazing personality. He was always he just treated us like friends, you know, even though we were his customers. He always was a friend to us more than a rep. You know, there's very few of our reps that are like that these days, especially now. And he was just always came in and told us about his life and what was going on with his dogs and stuff like that. So we always enjoyed his company.
Paul, I tell you what, the guy has the best heart of anybody I think I've ever met in my life, and would go out of his way to just do anything for you.
Okay.
Honestly.
Well, the only thing I could think was funny was where they had their wedding in the Harry Truman courtroom. And my father was a really strong Republican, and he would not have been pleased with that.
Yeah, one time we were refinishing wood floors, and he's using the belt sander first time. I'm teaching him, and he gets on his cell phone, and he's talking with his cell phone, and the belt sander's still on the ground in one spot. He's just burning the floor, and I'm like, "Paul, you know, what are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, you know," he pulls up the lever, and we look down, there's a big divot in the floor, and he's like, "Oh, you know," it was a big, you know, funny moment, you know, and it just, you know, he had those funny things, you know. He was a great salesman, amazing salesman, but like, I think he was doing too much at once. That was a perfect example of like chewing gum and using a belt sander and a cell phone all at the same time.
Yeah.
It was a good laugh, because we had to sit there and laugh about it.
Right.
You know.
One thing I can say about him is, even though, you know, maybe he didn't share his most inner thoughts with me, I always felt like I could do that with him. And when I was going through some rough times, and I know he was somebody I could talk to, and he was very open about that. I mean, we're not, at least I'm not, and I don't think Paul is some wild and crazy guy. So
yeah,
it was, you know, we play golf together, and we get together, and every once in a while we have some mutual friends, mostly people he knew that I've gotten to know through him, and now have become good friends of mine as well.
Right.
Well, one of my favorite stories, when Paul was traveling for work, he'd come down and sometimes stay with me when he was down in the Bradenton area. So I took him out to, it was a fundraiser at this country western bar, and Paul doesn't dance, period. So I got him not only dancing, but doing country dance lessons. And at the end of the night, he is drenched in sweat. We're all hot and sweaty, but he's absolutely dripping from head to toe. And then we went over to the Munchies 420 Cafe, which is like sort of a famous restaurant. It's been on like the Food Channel for their famous hot wings that took down one of those food guys. And it was the first time I'd ever been there. And that was definitely one of my favorite times. I enjoyed when I got to spend time with him one-on-one when he'd come down when he was traveling. It was always fun.
Cool.
He would always make you feel good about yourself. You know, he'd always, no matter how your day was going, he'd always just give you the brighter day, you know, brighter time of the day. And you know, he always had good advice for you. And you know, I could go to Paul and say, "Hey man, you know, I need a place to stay tonight, or I don't want to drive home." And you know, he'd give you your bed to sleep in. You know, he'd give you the shirt off your back. He's a very genuine, just nice guy. Just
right.
You know, he's gonna, you know,
right.
Great guy.
Well, I remember we had a big 50th anniversary party for my husband and me at our house. And I was busy running around getting ready for the party, and Paul was the one who went out and got the big ice chest and ice and put the drinks where people could get their own drinks.
Okay.
And I hadn't thought of doing that.
He's a good entertainer.
He knew how to throw the party.
What do you like best about Paul?
He puts up with my daughter. Gave her a nice life.
You know, anything you want to say, go ahead. Now's your time.
Well, I love him. That's it.
Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate it, buddy.
I'd like to say thank you for being a part of my life. You know, you were in my life during a very tough time of my life, and you were there for me. You know, you were there anytime I needed to talk to somebody, or if I had a problem, or, you know, even if I had to borrow money, you know, or vice versa. You know, you were always there for me, and you're one of a kind, Paul. You know, you're one of those guys that doesn't come around all the time, and a friend like you will always be missed. You know, and I wish we have 20 more years of friendship, and, you know, I love you, man.
Paul, you've always been such an amazing friend to us, not only where you are a rep, but you are always such an amazing friend. We enjoyed your company, we enjoyed coming to your parties, and we just enjoyed your friendship, and we love you so much, and we are so glad we could be with you here today to celebrate this party and celebrate your life. So I appreciate everything you did through us for the years. We miss you so much being our rep, and you just always stood by us and fought for us and helped us through all the tough times, as you know about, and we're always there for us.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you what, I love you, Paul.
Yeah.
Well, I think he was a good match for my daughter. I think he came to Florida when she was ready to come to Florida, and he got himself established here. And she's not easy to live with, and he did it.
I'll miss him. Planned on him being around a long time. I didn't know, if any of us would ever get it.
Well, obviously, Paul, I love you. He's one of those friends that we were really close, and then as we moved away and went to different parts of the country and did our thing, I had a family and got married and had a family. And, you naturally just kind of drift a little bit apart. But Paul was, always that guy who you could pick up the phone and call him and hadn't talked to him in 12 months, like you had just seen him yesterday. Some people you can do that, some people you can't. Paul is definitely a guy who, you felt just so comfortable with that you didn't feel you had to maintain that relationship to maintain that friendship. You didn't have to really work, although we could have worked at it better. Didn't feel like you really had to, because you knew he was always there. And if the situations were reversed, he'd be right there too, But he's, so, I guess that's how I would sum up our friendship and that closeness without really ever being on a day-to-day, contact basis. It's amazing that after all these years, you can just pick up right where you left off. So, that's unusual, I think. Maybe guys are kind of like that, I think, but but when you really have that bond with someone that you don't see all the time, it's different. He's just that kind of guy,
Paul, if nothing else, I'm glad that we really are friends and not just brother-in-law, sister-in-law, that I do get to consider you a friend, and I've gotten to share your life with you, that we're the only family that really lives close to each other here, at least from my side of the family, and just been thrilled to have him be a part of it.
Thanks for being a good friend, and particularly when I moved here, I didn't know anybody, and like I said, he helped my wife out, he helped me out, and I'm a better person because I know you. That's all I can say.
Paul, I can tell you right now, you brought me to Orlando. I was going through difficult times. You took me in at your house, got me a new job and a new start at life, and it's been great since then. Thank you.
Paul, you've always been the best friend. We've had the best laughs and the most adventure together, and look forward to thinking of you always in every adventure that I have for the remainder of my life, and looking forward to catching up with you later.